Good morning, one and all. Happy Nalanda Education Day to all. Some of you may be wondering why, on the topic on death, I chose a reddish screen, very, from Chinese point of view, very ong. Well, this is purposely to go against the what you call it, the stream, because death, although nobody wants to talk about it, or we try our best to avoid it, and in many cases we have come across our family members or friends that even refuse to attend a relative's wake because it is bad luck, so they say lah. But actually death serves a very useful purpose. It illustrates change, anicca, a very important quality. If there was no such thing as change, when we are born, we are stuck with whatever our future brings. We change, we can change our lives to improve, to learn, what it called. Or of course, there is the positive aspect. You can also degrade and go that way. So you can go any way you want. That means there's opportunity for degradation, for regression, or for growth and even enlightenment. That is what change brings us. But we change also brings with us the transformation of our minds, our personality, and also our body. This is part of nature. We see it all around us. So there's no denying change. It is only a psychological aspect. In a way, that diagram, what I call that special effect of that lady disintegrating, sort of got inspiration from the Avenger movies. Now, this particular picture is quite interesting. Seems a nice forest with a path, very misty. In a sense, it looks very pleasing, very nice, beautiful, and so on. But yet, the fact that there is a mist there shows an obscuration of what the future brings, what the next part of the path brings. So we cannot really see into the future. It's blurry, it's misty. So this is typically our lives. We do not know what lies ahead, what is going to come. And this is a typical, well, at least we hope that in our lives, all of us have an opportunity, our children and all our friends have the opportunity to be born, grow up, toddler, to be to a teenager, to a young person, go to school, graduate, and find our significant other, have another, maybe a spouse with children and so on. So some of us, that is the hope, because not everybody has this good fortune, let alone getting old and so on. Because some people are born within a month, they pass away. They don't get a chance to grow. So growing old is in a way something fortunate. Otherwise, you get stuck half born within 1 month, haven't even gone to the so-called Chinese moon yeet. That's why they have a moon yeet, to test whether the baby can survive. It cannot, it's gone. So not everybody, even as a toddler, there are accidents, there are diseases, they can take the life away. And every stage of our life, as we are growing up, all the kids want to grow up. As we growing older, we encounter the possibility of it shorten. So not always we can get a chance to grow old. And some of us, we reflect, is this life journey essentially the same for all? I would say yes, essentially. Slight variations here and there. Some born in rich family, some born in poor family, some born in fortunate family, some unfortunate, so on. But essentially, the main characteristics are the same. You grow up, do something, live a life. Whether you get married or not, have family or not, doesn't matter. But if you manage to survive that, maybe you get a chance to grow old, and finally you pass away. That essentially is the same. Every living being, not just us. And of course, along the way, we have issues. Our bodies are not what they call not immune to diseases. We fall sick, we have viral infections, we get fever, we have accidents, we must go to hospital. And for some people, they, at the bottom picture, with the man lying at the bottom, they get even cardiac arrest. They need attention from first aiders. You see those wires patch, the white patch on the thing, probably look hooked up to a orthopedic AED to defibrillate the heart so that he can survive. And meanwhile, while that is being activated, somebody does what they call CPR, okay, to keep his heart pumping. And of course, all this, there is fear arising because there is change to something we do not want. We do not want our legs, our arms to be broken. We don't want to get heart attack. We don't want to get fever, get ill. And as we grow older, we need tools to get around, the picture shows that. And for some people, we will note that, oh, my hearing not so good, so I need aids, whether via spectacles, whether via hearing aids and so on. So there is change in our lives. And of course, sometimes we reflect, are we all trapped in this soap opera rerun again and again and again? Not just among our families, every family, but if you take into the aspect of rebirth, wow, it's another round. Again, here we come again, so on. And of course, taking the reflections further, through our life, always have bumps along the way. Some are small bumps or humps, some are big, some are detours. We hope to go this way, suddenly something changed, we have to take another course, another shapes of in our life. And finally, it falls off a cliff. So we grow old, inevitable. We grow lonely because maybe those who are close around us have gone, they have passed away, and we are left alone. We have very few friends. We need help, have to be fed also, and even staying in a special assisted living facility. Okay, do not think that some people call it old folks home and denigrate these kind of facilities. Very often in the modern setting, families we are not like the ancient families like in China and so on, where grandfathers, mothers, and everybody stay in the same, so everybody can support each other. So the old folks can stay there and can be support. But nowadays, father and mother are working. Even the child has been taken care of by, if not the grandparents, it will be by a maid. Okay, so what about the older folks who cannot care for themselves? You need professional services. Now, I recall, the bottom right picture, I recall a situation in which when my own father got very old, and he developed Parkinson's disease, a kind of dementia. Parkinson's basically movement. Most people say Parkinson's, oh, the hand shaking. That one is called the early stages. There is no cure, it just progresses. You have to observe the situation. The mind is working fine, it's only the body. The brain sends a signal to your hand or your leg, I want to move, but the body doesn't want to listen. The body has its own way of thinking. It decides not to move, or move very slowly, or move very unsteadily. So falls are very possible. But it typically happens to an adult. I'm not sure about Parkinson's happening to a child. I haven't come across that. But normally to adults and normally older people. Of course, actors like Michael J. Fox, who was considered very young, he also got Parkinson's. So he had his own problems. But usually happens to older folks. Now, when you have a small child, very light, when the child cannot move around properly, just lift up and carry. Parents. When you have an adult, how do you lift? How do you manage? Physically move the adult from the bed after waking up in the morning to a chair, maybe a wheelchair. How do you go to the bathroom? How do you feed? How do you bathe? How to clothe? Or even go and see a doctor. So I had to take my father to the hospital to see his neurologist. Some of them professors and all those kind of things from UC Hospital, UMMC. So big size, it's not a baby. So how am I going to lift up my father? So I have to learn techniques of how to lift a person without hurting my back. Wheelchair is one thing, but move from the chair to the wheelchair, that's not easy, Then from the wheelchair, you wheel, say in my case, I wheel him to the car. How do you lift him up and put him into the car? Strap him up and so on. And then reach the destination, you have to take it out from the car into the wheelchair. Seems very simple, but it takes strength, So in a house where almost there's nobody, so how are you going to do that? So you have to learn things. You might have to, in my father's case, I had to engage in assisted learning assisted living facility to take care of him, to do all this hard work. In fact, I'm the one, I copy, I see how the orderlies there, the workers there, how they lift up my father, he put from A to B. So I learned that technique and I apply when I send my father to see the doctor. So those are some of the issues I had to learn. But there is always a fear future. I was thinking, is Parkinson hereditary? I was thinking, cannot be, because my grandfather didn't have it. My father's brothers, my uncles, they ever had it. Only my father had it. So highly unlikely lah. There's no trend through the generations. But of course, it can always happen lah. You do not know when it will come. And as we age, when we go and see doctors, this is what doctors use. Clinical frailty scale. Start with number 1. Okay, very fit. How many of us are very fit? And number 2, then, well, there are some certain descriptions. Of course, you may not be able to see the details here, a bit small, some of the wording. You can just click on your internet next time after the talk, clinical frailty scale. They came up by Dalhousie University, used by some of the US doctors. So you go down the thing, you have, although they may not say age, they judge by your physical ability to do things and so on. So it goes down, vulnerable, mildly frail, moderately frail, and number 7, severely frail. Number 8, very severely frail. Number 9, terminally ill. Terminal means is waiting for death to happen. So these are the things we have to consider. Even the medical profession have to take care of these kind of aspects. And there are many details inside there they have to manage. Nice picture, mist going through the forest. But it denotes something which we cannot see ahead, something blurry. Beautiful, which is very distracting. But the key issue is, where are we? Where are we going to move around the trees if we want to walk at the ground level? So the future is very uncertain again. So as with frailty, sooner or later, we may need palliative care. And what is the definition of palliative care? It's basically specialized medical care of people living with serious illness. Okay, they are not dying yet, They may have serious illness. They may be very young, but they need palliative care. Okay, so this type of care is focused on providing relief from the symptoms and stress of the illness. The goal is to improve quality of life for both the patient and the family. The stress is on improving quality of life. Okay. Now, palliative care is based on the needs of the patient, not on the patient's prognosis. Some people wondering, what is the meaning of the word prognosis? Prognosis is, if you catch a cold, what's the prognosis? Well, for most people, definitely you will get well. Prognosis means the chance of you getting well, no more disease, all that. So the chance of you healing. Of course, for some diseases, the prognosis is very poor, means you cannot get out of the disease. You can only get worse, these kind of things. So it is appropriate at any age and at any stage in a serious illness, and it can be provided along with curative treatment and so on. And of course, we move to the next one, most obvious. After palliative care, we talk about hospice care. The moment you hear the word hospice, it's called terminally ill, going to pass away. When? Don't know. Whether in a week's time, 6 months' time, a year's, or whatever. So increasingly, people are choosing hospice care at the end of life. Hospice care focuses on the care, comfort, and quality of life of a person with serious illness, who is approaching the end of life. So it may not be possible to cure a serious illness. Basically, hospice is provided for a person with a terminal illness whose doctor believes he or she has possibly 6 months or less to live if the illness runs its natural course. Of course, doctors have been wrong before, that they say, oh, you got to have 6 months to live, but the next thing you know, after 2-3 years, the fella is still walking around, still alive, but maybe still in hospice care. Now, these are some comments from various websites. There have been many websites that talk about people who are in hospice care and alive care that have comments. And this has also been made into videos. So do search your YouTube and other free video sites where there are interviews with families or people who, they know they are going to pass away, and so on. And how do they manage their life? What are the stresses they face in their life, and so on. Here, the key issues I have underlined. Now, all these aspects, this person considers as learned wisdom. I did not learn it from home because nobody wants to talk about it. It's death. Whoever talks about death at home, unless family member dies, then you are forced to. Then learn most of it from being in the situation I am in now. It means forced to face that situation. You kena that aspect, you're going to pass away, so you're thrown into it. There's no escaping. I never thought about it before. Then you get to a point where you cannot do it anymore. So there's a breakdown. Another person's comment, I really did not have to think about wisdom before I was ill. Wisdom means wisdom to understand that there is such a thing called death, that I will die. So before I was ill. So when you're ill, then only you're confronted. So a lot of people hit the wall and no choice, have to go on. So another one, I guess that's the last experience that I've had to deal with. My perspective, my life, my outlook on life, my outlook on everything has changed. Because when this thing hits you, time is limited. What are you going to do differently? That is an important aspect. Now, when you go through these kind of words, all of them tell you essentially the same message. You can just imagine Prince Siddhartha when he was considering this aspect. What was he thinking at that time? I have no interest in money. Money used to be pretty important. Nothing material is important since I have been on hospice. So money, a lot of people are chasing money and so on. And then every day I wake up and I am alive. I am thankful. I do not take it for granted. I did before I got sick, but not now. So every day is a good day because you are still able to open your eyes. I think I know more about people's reaction, what people are really striving for, and the importance of goals and things that I did not even think about before, because a lot of people are carefree. This reminds me of an example of especially young kids, teenagers of varying age. In Malaysia, they call them mak rempit, who don't care about their safety. They don't value life. Or I don't know whether you call those kids that ride bicycles in the middle of the night, like 3 a.m. or whatever, on highways. And their bicycles are specially outfitted, these bicycles do not have brakes, because they want to dare each other. You dare to go along this highway without a brake, and roll down the hill, So if a car cross a thing, you hit into a thing, you die lah. So they want, I dare you, you dare me. So it reminds me of these things. So now wisdom is being aware of my surroundings, trying to read the people that I meet, and trying to appreciate my day and look for the gifts, look for the positive instead of the negative. Suddenly, all these people become very philosophical. But that actually is not them only, it's us also. We are also like that. I had to learn how to do nothing. I went from a person that did everything to a person who does nothing. Why? They cannot do. They're sick on the bed. Okay, it takes more wisdom than I had. I have it now because I have learned how to cope with it. I am more comfortable with my situation, not 100%, but more comfortable. And the last comment, I want them to remember me with a smile, laughing and giggling, and doing some of the silly things we do. It is fun. Why do you want to live on the sad note? I do not want to remember being sad. So this is an approach this person wanted to take. And there are many, many other websites that document all this, many videos and documentaries on this aspect you can go through. And of course, as we grow older, the inevitable happens. The top left-hand picture, the wife and mother of their child, the father has already passed away. And the one below, of course, the pandemic, we saw a lot of these kind of pictures. And for those countries that do not, they bury their dead, this is another very large, one of the largest cemeteries in the world. So the dead are everywhere, in a way. And because there is a fear of the unknown, many of us, especially the Chinese, they go to temples, we bye, we pray, we burn paper, whatever lah. The Sifu tells us to do, we will do. Okay, we even make animal sacrifices or whatever lah. Try to delay, avoid getting sick, get cured, if possible, live forever. Which even Chinese emperors have been trying for centuries. They even have specially appointed court alchemists to devise this pill of elixir, but they're still dead. So even the Bodhisattva, this is a comment, Dhammapada verse 153 from the Bodhisattva, he has mentioned, through many a birth in samsara. What is samsara? Cycle of birth and death. Now, the earlier portion, I was talking about going through life, being born, hopefully, if you're fortunate enough, grow up, go into youth, to adulthood, get married, have children, and grow old and pass away. So that is called one life, our life now. But the Buddha discovered, he knew that there was such a thing called repeated, that same situation, the same story, rerun soap opera. So it's called samsara, again and again. So through many a birth in samsara, wandered I, the Bodhisattva thought, seeking but not finding the builder of this house. Sorrowful is repeated birth. Some people complain, I didn't request to be born. Why must I be born? Born, die. I don't want to be born. This is exactly the Bodhisattva's question. Why? Builder of this house. Why am I here? So, but most of the time, no answers. And as I mentioned, there is repeated loss in samsara. Now, there are a number of suttas. In this case, Asu Sutta, tears, from the Samyutta Nikaya, chapter 15. Chapter 15 has many such suttas that dwell on this topic of repeated loss in samsara. So here, long have you repeatedly experienced the death of a mother, death of a father, a brother, a sister, a son, a daughter, loss with regard to relatives, to your wealth, and loss to disease. The tears you have shed over loss with regard to disease while transmigrating or being reborn and wandering this long time, crying and weeping, from being joined with what is displeasing, being separated from what is pleasing, provided all these tears that you shed doesn't evaporate, are greater than the water in the 4 great oceans. So all the oceans on planet Earth, the amount of water over this long period of time, if the water didn't evaporate, is more than the 4 great oceans. You can just imagine. So why is that? From an inconstruable beginning comes rebirth or transmigration. A beginning point is not evident, though beings hindered by ignorance and fettered by craving are being reborn and wandering on. Now, this particular sentence, a beginning point is not evident. So for people who want to ask, did Buddhism talk about the beginning of the world? Yeah, that's the answer. No beginning. And this is not the only sutta. There are a few number of other suttas in this chapter and yet other sections in the Tipitaka. The Buddha tells the same story. No beginning. Endless. So long have you thus experienced stress or dukkha, experienced pain, experienced loss, swelling the cemeteries, enough to become disenchanted with all fabricated things, enough to become dispassionate, enough to be released. The last sentence is very important. As you go through the practice, you meditate and you see enough of these observations of what happens to other people, your relatives, and even in your own lives. When you come across the issue is that it is because we have greed, hatred, and delusion that cause us to be born again and again. You become disenchanted, become fed up. Enough lah. I don't want any more of this. The mind itself turns it away. So what happens? You turn away from the notion of having greed, hatred, and delusion. When you're able to give that up, the last portion of the sentence, enough to be released. It means you release from grasping, from craving. So you let go of craving, no more craving within you, you become enlightened. Okay, that is the goal of the practice, to become released by being disenchanted with all fabricated things and so on. Now we talk about suffering, or suffering is not a very good translation, but it's one of the many words that can be used to describe the primary word called dukkha. So the Buddha, in the first lecture given to the 5 ascetics at the deer park, the Buddha said, now this is the noble truth of dukkha. In Pali is dukkhang ariya satchang, the noble truth of suffering or unsatisfactoriness. Rebirth is suffering. Old age is suffering. Illness is suffering. Death is suffering. Association with the dislike is suffering. Separation from the light is suffering. Not getting what you wish for is suffering. And finally, in brief, the 5 grasping aggregates are suffering. The Panchu Upadana Ganda Dukkha. So this is the Buddha's definition of the word dukkha in the first sermon. Yet another beautiful forest scene with all the mist. One is blurring our future. And this story is talking about the life of Prince Siddhartha. And it happened in northern India, in his kampong town called Kapilavatu, in the kingdom of Sakya. He was a young man and so on. And to continue the story, I'd like to invite Brother Vincent to share with us an important aspect of this story.
Thank you, Brother Ananda. Good morning, brother, sister. Okay, let me show you some share with you sutta that Buddha make some reflection of his young time. I mean that during his youth. Okay, the sutta name is Sukumara Sutta, Kudara Nikaya, book 3. Sorry. So in this sutta, right, basically the Buddha actually share or describe insight that let him to at his young age, right, to go forth actually. Now in this sutta, right, in one occasion the Buddha shared his young time just like what Chinese say when time is still young at time, he still was the Prince Siddhartha, and how his youth, how's the life of his youth. Basically, the time his father, the king, actually built him with the 3 ponds, lotus ponds. One is white color, one is red, and one is blue. Actually, you just imagine that if during that time you're also your currently is at your time, you have 3 swimming pool in your house, different swimming pool, okay? Your jacuzzi, whatever So he also that during the time where whatever they wear, right, the sandalwood they use, and the clothing they wear, right, all from Varanasi. That's just like today, everything's made from France. Your wallet, your purse, or all from the branded kind of items. So that kind of life. And also they have 3 palaces, okay, being built for him. So imagine that you have 3 villas, 3 bungalows built for you. That's kind of life, very enjoyable. And the father also has this entertainment for him, that entertain with this those lady entertainer, and also never come up to the stage, just sit down enjoying. And during time, he also have a servant. The servant in the ordinary household, right, are eating all those broken rice, But for his servant, right, they're eating meat with all this very good life. So during this kind of enjoyment or this sensual pleasure, right, he has a thought come to him. What kind of thought that come to him is that where he thought that, during his time, that ordinary man is subject to age, okay? And when time these people subject to age, right, when time they see all those old men or the aged person, right, they feel disgust and feel horrified. So just like us, sometimes I reflect, right, I mean, in previous day when I go into the crowded place and I just like rushing for my time, right? And one old lady or old man standing behind me, and standing in front of me, walk very slow. I got this kind of thought that come to me, wow, why walk so slow? I mean that, not only that, after few years later, I will become one of them also. So this kind of reflection, the time Prince Siddhartha also had this kind of thoughts that, he realized that this is not appropriate because those people that indulge in the youth, right, intoxicant with the youth, they might really drop away from the practice. So this is the first reflection that he has, okay, about the age. Then the second thought come to him, where he also thought that the ordinary man also subject to illness, and not beyond illness. And this kind of people, right, will see those those sick person, they'll feel like very disgust, very horrified, But again, he thinks that the Prince Siddhartha also said that this thinking or this kind of attitude, right, is also not appropriate because with this kind of indulging in this kind of healthy, right, the health person, I mean, that our body is still very healthy, there will be like, will also go away. Just imagine us, when we see the sick person, especially when we visit the hospital, right, we smell the smell of the hospital smell, and some patient actually sick, they have this kind of smell, and you feel that really disgust on, sometimes. So myself also, last time also like, when I go to hospital or those old age, old folks home, right, especially the reunionists, the smell I cannot describe, but it's really a sick person smell that I will feel that at the time quite a disgust. So again, the reflection you should make that, one day we also will ill, we also will sick. This also will come to me, all right? The third thought, actually the Prince Siddhartha, is that the ordinary man also subject to death, but not beyond death. So all these people, sometimes like these people that a lot of ordinary people that see that, the dead person or the funeral, they feel disgust or horrified or scared on that. So against that, a lot of time that we also see the dead person, especially Chinese, where you see that, the funeral, especially at this, they're passing by the housing area, right? A Chinese person said, oh, it's not good luck. It's like, really want to try to associate this kind of ceremony. So this kind of thought also come to us that, it's not appropriate. Actually, one day we also subject to death. Actually, this reflection actually, during I reading this, where Brother Ananda shared with me this sutta, right, I read through, actually a lot of time during my young age, I also have this kind of thoughts during against this aging, illness, and death. It's a good reflection while I study and all this sutta, right? Actually give a good reflection that, at my age now, right, I better get prepared and, one day also subject to all these things. Oh, that is my sharing. I'll pass the time back to Brother Ananda.
Thank you, Brother Vincent. Good reflections, personal reflections. Now, the sutta actually continues, but later I will show you more from the sutta, the Sukumala Sutta. Well, as we go through this topic of reflection, we have to always remind us that we have this natural law called karma. And the Buddha defines in this sutta from the Anguttara Nikaya, Book of 6, that intention, I tell you, is karma. Intending, one does an action by way of body, speech, and mind. So karma is not based on action only, but intention. It means you purposely want to do something, then you generate this karmic energy. And then the impact of karma is very critical. Who is responsible? And the Buddha says in yet another sutta from the Book of 5, I'm the owner of my karma, of my deeds. So because you did it with that certain intention, you own it. And heir to my deeds. Now, what does heir mean? Heir means you inherit this. When a person passes away, regardless whether the person is a poor person, middle income person, or super billionaire, it makes no difference. because the billionaire definitely cannot have his Rolls Royces, what they call Lamborghinis, whatever, come together with him to the other world. Of course, the Chinese people will try to beg to differ. They can make paper versions of this and burn and hopefully to transfer over lah. But basically, as far as the Buddha is concerned, during his enlightenment, he found that you can't take all the what I call bonds of this what I call money and everything to the other world, wherever it is. So the only thing you carry with you are the results of your actions here and now and in the past. So you inherit all this in the next life. Deeds are my womb. Why? Your karma, your actions affect who will be your parents in the future, who your father, mother, if you have father and mother. Of course, some beings don't have father and mother, they appear spontaneously. So where you appear, which plane of existence, whether below or above or whatever. So it determines that. My relative, so who are your siblings? Who are your uncles and aunties? And if you go further afield, who are your friends? Whether you mix up with good siblings that support each other or very bad siblings that compete and fight with you and wallop you in the same family. There are some families like that and so on. My refuge, this one is very important. What is a refuge? Just now we went for the Tisarana, recited that. Refuge is, put it simply, on a hot day or a very wet day, we use an umbrella. We have refuge underneath the umbrella. The umbrella serves as a refuge. Why? It shields us from the hot sun or tries to keep us dry in rainy weather. So something that protects us, prevents something we don't like to happen. So my refuge here goes beyond that. Refuge also determines if you want a way out, you want to find a way to make a living, I need to learn a skill. Okay, I need to, if I'm lucky, my father is a carpenter, my father teach me, he's my refuge. Not only my father, but he teaches me how to be a carpenter. I learn that skill, I earn a living as a carpenter. That's good. But nowadays, of course, the father may be one, but you do not want to be a carpenter. You want to do something else. You want to be an accountant. So you still need refuge. You need a sifu to teach you all the skills of how to be an accountant and so on. And not just one sifu, maybe many along the way in increasing competency or different types of specialization. Accounting also, or finance field, got so many types of finance. Okay, so that refuge. But in terms of spiritual aspects, refuge, you need to have an opportunity to learn the Dhamma. For people to suggest you come to Nalanda Center to learn something, suggest to you to attend talks or listen to talks by this speaker, that Achan, that Sayadaw, or whatever, or this book and that book. So those are refuges that guide you to safety, give you the opportunities. And in the end, I shall be the heir of whatever deeds I do, whether they are good or bad. So good things happen. If you do good things, you inherit all those. Of course, you have a pleasant life, lah. Okay. If you do unskillful things, then of course all the unpleasantness come to you. You inherit. So you own it. Now back to the Sukumala Sutta. Now here, as Brother Vincent has mentioned, Sukumala, the Buddha was explaining to the monks, and the Buddha recalled the three palaces and the early days. And the Buddha continued here. Monks, there are these three forms of intoxication: with youth, with health, with life. Intoxications, why? It causes problems to us if we do not think wisely. So drunk with the intoxication of youth and uninstructed, run-of-the-mill person, people like us, run-of-the-mill, engages in bodily misconduct, verbal misconduct, and mental misconduct. Why? Because they do not know better. So they just do whatever they think fit, or whatever their friends tell you to do, or advise you to do. So having engaged in bodily misconduct, verbal misconduct, and mental misconduct, he or she, on the breakup of the body, after death, reappears in the plane of deprivation, in the bad destination, the lower realms, even in hell. So there are many levels. That means you create the necessary, you do unskillful actions, you create the karma, that on passing away, you make yourself being born in unpleasant situations. Okay? And drunk with the intoxication of health, same thing. Because of that, you disparage all those who are not healthy, and you conduct yourself in bodily misconduct, verbal misconduct, and mental misconduct. And the same thing happens. Because of that, in the breakup of the body, the person is born in unpleasant circumstances. And of course, drunk with the intoxication of life. Some people don't care. They do all kinds of things. Like I mentioned earlier, the mak rempit, they are youth, they are healthy, they are full of life. To hell with it, I will do anything that I want. They play with death. And of course, you read the newspapers, we know the result. Some survive. The one who survived, we do not know about most of the time. The one who died, we know lah, because they become published in the newspaper. Oh, so and so family lost this kid because they were riding at 3 a.m. with a bicycle that has no brakes and challenging each other and the whole gang. And of course, people like us expect, oh, the police must go and take action. How to take action? All these kind of errand fellas when the parents can't even take care of their own kid. So these are the issues. And even in the spiritual world, we have that problem. The people who have become monks, but drunk with the intoxication of youth, a monk leaves the training and returns to the lower life. What does this mean? Lower life means the life of a lay person like us, and leaves the training. The training is, as a monk, you are undergoing training. So you leave monkhood and return to be a lay person because you're intoxicated with youth. And some monks will leave because of intoxication with health. And drunk with the intoxication of life, they will leave the training of the Buddha's dispensation. So this causes issues. Now, this portion is quite important. Here, the Buddha at the back of the sutta summarizes the aspects. Subject to birth, subject to aging, subject to death. Run-of-the-mill people are repelled by those who suffer from that to which they are subject. So this is re-emphasizing what Brother Vincent has mentioned. The Buddha saying, I see people getting old, dying, getting sick. I don't want to hang around those people. Keep far away. Some people have phobia mixing up or hanging around old people or sick people. They don't go to hospitals, they don't visit. Even wake also, they don't want to go because it's pantang to them. They kind of funny attitudes. So this is reflected. Even 21st century, we can still see it with our own eyes. And if I were to be repelled by being subject to these things, it would not be fitting for me living as they do. So obviously, you know that, oh, they are like that because of something. And as I maintain this attitude, knowing the Dhamma without acquisitions, I overcame all intoxication with health, youth, and life. Okay, so the Bodhisattva got rid of all these misconception and aspects as one who sees renunciation as rest. That already spurred him to renounce the world. And the bottom right portion, notice I make it yellow, extra bright, extra big font. This is a very important aspect. A lot of people, when they see, oh, your birth, aging, death, wow, very sad, very depressed. But the bottom right is the direct opposite of what the Bodhisattva felt. For me, energy arose. Energy arose for what? For what? To do something about it. Now, that's the issue, to do something about it. Energy arose. Unbinding is clearly seen. Unbinding, the Pali word is Nibbanang. Abis Pasato. Pasato is to see. Nibbanang is, he sees Nibbana. So this translator uses the word unbinding as Nibbana was clearly seen. So there's now no way I could partake of sensual pleasures. So he cannot stay in the palace anymore with all the beautiful girls dancing around him, making music and so on. Having followed the holy life, I will not return. So he will not return to the palace, to the sensual pleasures and all those enjoyment. So, and the holy life, the Pali word is brahmacharya. This is the noble way. But the key aspect I want to emphasize is energy arose. For some of us, we see all this, we get depressed. That's why we don't want to go to the wake and all this kind of thing. But for him, he said, I'm also like that. So why I should be rejecting of this phenomena? But I want to do something about it. So I rouse up the energy to go forth and do something. At least do for yourself lah. If you find the recipe of how to cure old age, sickness, and death, I can share the so-called the knowledge, the teaching, and so on. So this is the important takeaway from the Sukumala Sutta. Energy arose. And from this rousing of the internal energy to practice and do something, in yet another sutta, the Mahasachaka Sutta from the Majjhima Nikaya Sutta number 36, before my awakening, when I was still an unawakened bodhisattva, the thought occurred to me, household life is confining, a dusty path. Life gone forth is the open air. It isn't easy living in a home to practice the holy life, totally perfect, totally pure, a polished shell. What if I, having shaved off my hair and beard and putting on the orc robe, were to go forth from the household life into homelessness? So this was the prince considering renunciation. And so at a later time, when I was still young, black-haired, endowed with the blessings of youth in the first stage of life, having shaved off my hair and beard, though my parents wished otherwise and were grieving with tears on their faces, I put on the orc robe and went forth from the home life into homelessness. And having gone forth in search of what might be skillful and seeking the unexcelled state of the sublime bliss, I went to his first teacher, Alara Kalama. And the story continues. Now, the portion I underline, though my parents were grieving with tears on their faces. This one goes against all the Lalita Vistara story that says that claims that the prince go and churi out the palace, right on the Kantika and ran away. The sutta says otherwise. The parents knew he wanted to renounce and they were crying because of that. So he walked out. He still walked out. He renounced. He didn't churi right on the horse and run away, as the romanticized version of the story says. But for the rest of us, we are not bodhisattvas. At least I do not know any bodhisattvas here. Maybe there are. Back to this, Ita Sutta. Many of you have heard this sutta before, but just as a reminder, what we want, what is desirable, what is welcome. So the Buddha says, for a noble disciple, house lord, who wishes to have long life. Who doesn't want long life? Chinese New Year, we always wish the older folks, oh, long life, but we know for a fact they're getting old. We wish long life. We want beauty, for guys, handsomeness. We want happiness. We want fame and rebirth in heaven. And the Buddha says, it is not proper that he should pray for long life and so on, up to rebirth in heaven, and partake delight in doing so. He should rather follow a way of life that is conducive to long life, etc., and rebirth in heaven. By following such a path, he would obtain long life. So again, this part of the sutta and the earlier ending of the Sukumala Sutta, energy arose. We have to take matters in our own hands to do something if we want something in our lives. If you want long life, we have to take action. Long life doesn't mean you take all the vitamin pills and everything. You forgot about eating all the green vegetables, and some people say multicolored veg is very good, all the red, yellow, and all those kind of stuff. Exercise is important, not bakute every morning, you cannot. Nasi lemak every day, every morning also is very bad because lemak, and you don't exercise, so you can see your waist get the kind of problem. So these are things we have to do. We have to take action to do something. Now, this topic of reflection on death is very wide. It covers the before passing away. It covers during death, in moments just after death, and including the next life. It covers a wide. In our morning session here, there's no way in which I can cover all these topics, which is part 1, part 2, part 3, part 4, covering many topics which many Dhamma speakers at Nalanda Center have already covered. The aspect of how karma works, how rebirth takes place, and so on. Many, many topics. So I have to choose certain topics. And through my life, I've attended many, many wakes and funerals of friends, of relatives. So lessons from a Buddhist funeral, at least Theravada. I cannot comment about Mahayana Buddhist funerals. So we are talking about the Buddha, about his own funeral. Why? The Buddha declared to the monks and the public that I'm going to pass away in so many months' time. So Venerable Ananda asked him, how should we handle your body after you have passed away? So the Buddha has recorded this statement. The Buddhist attitude, the Venerable Kesri Dhammananda has an attitude about how should we handle the Buddhist funeral. Reflections by the living, reflections on death, which is today's topic, wholesome mind, and dedication of merits. Now, from the Mahaparinibbana Sutta, Digha Nikaya Sutta number 16. Now, the Venerable Ananda asked the Buddha, how should we act, Lord, respecting the body of the Tathagata? And the Buddha said, do not hinder yourselves, Ananda, to honor the body of the Tathagata. Rather, you should strive, Ananda, and be zealous on your own behalf. Take care of yourself, the Buddha said, for your own good. Unflinchingly, ardently, and resolutely, you should apply yourselves to your own good. For there are, Ananda, wise nobles, wise Brahmans, wise householders who are devoted to the Tathagata, and it is they who will render the honor to the body of the Tathagata. So, in short, the Buddha is saying, telling the monks, do not bother with the body of the Tathagata. You go and practice what he has taught. Leave the lay people to count him, his funeral, and so on. And that's very important. Because the function of a person who renounced the world and a person, a lay person, are different. And comments by Venerable Dr. K. Sri Dhammananda. Now, Buddhists are not very particular regarding the burial or cremation. Some Chinese say, oh, you cannot cremate, must bury, up to you. But as far as Buddhists concerned, up to you to choose. Your family want this way, can. This way also can. So, burial or cremation of a dead body. In many Buddhist countries, cremation is customary. For hygiene and economic reasons, it is advisable to cremate. Now, a real Buddhist funeral is a simple, solemn, and dignified ceremony. Unfortunately, some people have included many unnecessary, extraneous items and superstitious practices into the funeral rites. Why? It's good for business. You must think, it's good for business. Did they introduce this? So if your relative ever burn a iPhone to send to your relative, make sure you get the name card of someone who can repair to burn along. Okay, so that the relative, if they get trouble with the iPhone in the wherever world, they can come back and visit the fellow who sold the thing. Okay, standard joke, that one. But this was a very important aspect. The Buddhist funeral is a simple, solemn, and dignified ceremony. I have attended a wake of my sister-in-law in Penang, Mount Erskine, the wake area. And the next parlor, next door, was a family, very interesting situation. So-and-so died, the children were there, almost no other relatives, only the children, 2 or 3 of them. Then suddenly I saw a group of people come, set up the place. What did they do? So tai hei, Apparently, the one who passed away requested, when I pass away, you must employ so-and-so, these actors, come to the place. As I already passed away, I want to see this, whatever story. Because I do not know Chinese, so I asked my wife, hey, what's going on? So, got LED running light to tell the story as the scene 1, scene 2, scene 3. So we were sitting at the next parlor. Wow, very interesting. I've gone to many wakes. I have never gone to a wake where next stall is called Zhou Tai Hei. No stage, but it's called acting around the coffin. Okay, very entertaining. Very interesting things people do. Now, reflections on death, a Buddhist funeral. Very often for Theravadins, we invite venerables, monks, to go to the wake, or even the funeral, they do the same thing. So what we do, we get the family members to go to the front, in front of the venerables, and the venerables will start chanting and maybe request the family to join in also. Now, Buddha Abhivadana, homage to the Buddha. Sounds like a big name. What is that? Namo tassa bhagavato arahato sama sambuddhassa. That's what we are chanting. Tisarana, we should know. 3 different Buddhang saranang gacchami and so on, which we recited just now. Panchasila, 5 precepts, we are familiar. Buddha Vadana, or reflection on the Buddha qualities, Itipiso, Bhagava, Arahang, and so on. Dhamma Vandana, Swakato Bhagavata Dhammo, and so on. Sangha Vandana, Supatipanno, Bhagavato, Savaga Sangho. All these we have recited just now. Now, before I go to the next page, I have to emphasize, I have to share with you an observation I made. Why do the venerables lead the immediate family members and those who are seated nearby in this chanting? It is for the purpose, not, a lot of people, the lay people, ordinary people, and your relatives and your friends, they think that the monks are praying for your one who passed away. In Buddhism, I have to state one thing. If you define prayers, and normally prayers means you're asking God or whatever deity, and a lot of not so educated Buddhists think that Buddha is God. Okay, they might have the wrong idea. So they ask, "Oi, go and save my loved one who has passed away. Send him or her to heaven and so on, or have a good rebirth." That's what they think. So they request. Now, if you have gone through the English, which you have gone through just now, of all these recitals, there was no request. There was only reflection of the, the 5 precepts, reflection of the Buddha qualities, Dhamma qualities, Sangha qualities. There's no request. So this portion of the chanting, there were no prayers. That's why every time I go for Dhamma sharing, I touch on the topic on prayer, I boldly tell everybody, Buddhists do not pray. Pray in the definition of asking a higher being to help to do something, whatever. Buddhists do not pray. Around Pute, they walk past a Chinese temple or Buddhist temple, you see the monks chanting, especially Thai temple, they say, those monks are praying. Why are they using the word praying? Because the Orang Puteh, we come from a Christian country with those kind of ideologies. In church, they pray. So not knowing what the monks are chanting, to them is mumbo jumbo, whatever. They don't know what it means. So they assume, must be same as mine. The assumption. That assumption is wrong. So I want to emphasize, Buddhists do not pray. Buddhists do not ask for anything. Okay? So when you look at this, from all of you, we have gone through the Pali as well as the English, you know the meaning. This section, no prayers at all. So when the monks go to a wake, they are not praying for the one who passed away. In fact, the whole chanting, there's no praying for, no prayers, and not praying for. Only the last portion is of interest. I will get to that. After this, then they go to the Buddha Nusati, reflections on the Buddha. There's a whole list of chanting verses. Metta Bhavana, reflections on loving kindness. Asubha Nusati, reflections on the foulness of the body. And today, I will give, next few pages, I will spend a little bit more time on reflections on death. Marana Nusati. Marana Nusati made out of 2 words. Marana means death, Anusati is reflection. And of course, most of you are familiar with Paticca Samuppada, dependent co-origination. Karaniya Metta Sutta, some of you are very expert in chanting Karaniya Metta Sutta. And Anichata, I'll touch on that. And finally, dedication of this Patidana. Idame Yatinang Hotu, you're familiar with that. Why do we do all that? The first page, and then go through this. If you look through all these are all reflections. These are all, in a way, Dhamma talk. Reminding us to do this, to think of this, to think of that, think of that. If the relatives sitting down there are paying attention, and they usually have a chanting book, and from the temple, from Sentu Buddhist temple, they often give out this book. Recently, I attended a wake a few days ago. They give out this free edition that has all this in Pali, English, and Chinese. Okay. In fact, it'd be good if you can print for our members if we attend wakes, so that whoever attends, Nalandian attends, they can read. Now, so what are those people doing? When they listen to Dhamma talk, their minds are not go here, go there, thinking of unwholesome things. Their minds are wholesome. They're reflecting on the words of the chanting and so on. And hopefully, if they know they read from the thing, the English or Chinese meaning, they know the meaning, they can reflect on it. By doing that, by the ending of the chanting, they have in the way attended a short Dhamma talk, going through the various reflections. By doing that, their minds are very wholesome. Wholesome minds generate wholesome karmic energies. The person who chanted, not the one who passed away. The passed away cannot do anything. The family members there, and any of the friends they're in the audience, they are following this thing. They are generating wholesome karmic energies. And at the end, dedication of merits. If the one who passed away nearby has been born in the Peta world, hungry ghost world, idang me yatinang hotu, may my merits, may this. I'm jumping the gun, later I explain more. Idang me, what is idang? May this what? My reflection, my chanting, my meditation on all that has gone through, the Bhante has led us through this. May this action, that means this wholesome thing I have been doing, may this be for my relative who has passed away. So you're thinking of your relative, you have generated wholesome karmic energy. If the relative happened to be reborn as a hungry ghost, which is unfortunate, and the relative is nearby, seeing this happening, the relative will rejoice. Idam me yatinang hotu, sukita hontu nyatoyo. Sukita, you're encouraging the departed relative, if they are hungry ghosts and petas hanging around there, to rejoice over what the relatives and friends have been doing. When a peta rejoices, the peta, the hungry ghost, generates wholesome karmic energies for themselves. When they generate, you cannot transfer minus from your karmic account and positive on their account. No such thing. The Buddha never taught minus, transfer my account to yours. No such thing. You generate your own wholesome or unwholesome merits. So you are encouraged, by doing a wholesome action, you're encouraging people to rejoice. It means have the quality of mudita. Very important. Mudita. Okay. Rejoicing over the wholesome actions of other people. So in this case, your relative rejoice, the relative, departed relative, generates wholesome karmic energy because the person has fresh karma. The karma, wholesome karma generated may be enough to make this person die as a hungry ghost and be reborn in a higher plane. That's how you are helping. But if the relative has already been born as another human being, this chanting doesn't help because conceived already somewhere else. Born in the hell world, also this chanting doesn't help. Born as a deva, it doesn't help. But born as a deva, but if the deva is earthbound, he see you, oh, my brother, my son, oh, doing to this. You are as a deva. Devas don't need your help. They are better than us. So you see, oh, they're happy for you also. Okay. So this whole chanting is only for people who are born as petas, hungry ghosts. In case they are there and they are nearby, you do all this wholesome action, even doing dana, offering to the monks and so on. You chant this dedication merits. The first part, idang me nyatinang, the word idang me, may this recent action of offering food to the bhikkhu sangha be for my relatives. May they rejoice. So if they are there, if they are petas, they rejoice, they make wholesome karmic energies for themselves. Now I move to the next very important aspect. If you have attended many, many wakes in Nirvana or very other centers or at home, what happens is that you will find that when the monks are chanting and the relatives try to follow the book that's given to them to follow, you notice if you look carefully, if you recall, the people sitting down there, or maybe even some of the relatives sitting at the back of on the mat and the floor there at the back, they're not paying attention. They are not participating. They're not chanting together. They're not trying to understand the reflection. And make it worse, some in the crowd towards the back, they're talking to each other loudly some more, interfering, disturbing the concentration of the people who are trying to chant. Is that good? Why are you chanting? So that you reflect on the thing. When people are talking and you're trying to chant, you cannot do two things at the same time. So people who do that, they are disturbing the opportunity of the close relatives and friends to generate wholesome karma so that they can patidana at the end. Right? So I'm being very forceful. To me, for this kind of situation, I'll tell, if you do not want to participate in the chanting, get out of the room. I'm being very frank. Because you're disturbing me. I'm trying to take care of my loved one. And you are stopping me from taking care of my loved one. I want to generate wholesome calming energy to reflect on the Dhamma, and yet you're stopping me. So you don't know what's going on. You don't want to participate. Go somewhere else. And down the road somewhere, another room or whatever. Don't hang around there. Okay, that's why sometimes I'm unhappy. Why people like that? Because it is out of ignorance. So when you know these details, then the attitude becomes different. Okay, I'm not saying that you must participate. You don't want to participate, okay. There's no forcing. Please leave. If you stay, please be respectful, keep quiet. If possible, join in. That's all I'm asking. Now let's move on to the very important Maranusati, reflection on death. All the Pali, the Reverend chants, what does it mean? Is there a prayer? No, it's a reflection. So reading the English, seeing with wisdom the end of life in others, and comparing this to a lamp kept in the windy place, one should meditate on death. Just as in this world, beings who once enjoyed great prosperity will die. Even so, one day will I die too. Death will indeed come to me. This death has come along with birth. And this is important. As long as you are born, you will die. We'll stop. Okay? Therefore, like an executioner, death always seeks an opportunity to destroy. Life without halting for a moment and ever keen on moving, runs like the sun that hastens to set after its rise. So even the sunrise, they will set. This life comes to an end like a streak of lightning, a bubble of water, a dewdrop on a leaf, or a line drawn on water. Like an enemy intent on killing, death can never be avoided. If death could come in an instant to the Buddhas, endowed with great glory, proudness, merits, supernormal powers, and wisdom, what could be said of me? No, you're not even the Buddha. Buddha also can pass away. We are just putujanas, ordinary people. For want of food and through internal ailments or through external injuries, these can cause me dying every instant, and I shall die within the twinkling of an eye. Now, this is the end of the reflection. So, no prayers, isn't it? This is meditative. So read the English, read the Chinese, so that you can understand what is going on during the wake chanting and during the funeral. The monks will chant the same thing. But since he chanted in Pali, we don't know the meaning. We thought, oh, this one is a prayer for the one who passed. It's not. It's for us. And towards the end, reflection of peace. And we have heard this before. Anicca vata sankhara upadaya dhammino upajitva nirujanti tesang bupasamo sukho. All things are impermanent. They arise and pass away. Having arisen, they come to an end. Their coming to peace is bliss. And this one is not said by the Buddha, no. Saka said it on the passing away of the Buddha. So these are Saka's words recorded in the Mahaparinibbana Sutta. The picture at the top right indicates a person who has already been cremated. The immediate families rent a sampan or boat to go out to a river or the sea to let go the ashes and the bones into the sea. And that's why, after knowing all this, even my grandfather similarly was also disposed like that. So my wife also agreed, I also agree. So I told my son, I don't want him to figure out, hey, what kind of funeral I want. I tell him like that, cremate. No need to put the columbarium. It's called wasting money. You know why? You pay so much money for the columbarium. It's for who? To pay respect. But forget about other relatives, your immediate family. When I pass away, who knows me? My immediate children. If I'm lucky, I have grandchildren. Those two generations may know me. After that, who is Fong Chung Fat? just another so many, no, wasting time. So throw. Okay, no need to waste money. And patidana. So when all the congregation who has participated in the wake chanting, reflection, and meditation, idang me nyatinang hotu. Actually, this verse originally in the suttas was not idang me, it was idang vo nyatinang. Vo means our. We together we do. Where is it? Which sutta is it found? Tirokuda Sutta on the dedication of marriage, involving Kim Bimbisara and his departed relatives. That was another story. Idang vo nyatinang hotu. Nyatinang means relatives. And I emphasize, idang means this. This what you refer to the earlier session of dana, of meditation, of chanting and reflection. So may this be for my relatives. May the relatives be happy. Notice in the Pali as well as the English translation, there is no mention of the word transference. No transference involved. That is a wrong concept. And for those who want to know more, further reading, you can check out Bhante Ayasma Agatitas. It was in the free distribution book, but you can download the PDF version. Merits, can they be transferred? Bhante Agatita quotes this sutta, that sutta, to talk about this aspect. Okay, for your further information. Okay, now, of course, a lot of people want to know how Buddhist funerals are conducted. So some aspect about Buddhist funeral rites from the book, What Buddhists Believe, is a little bit. A little bit more detailed is how a Theravada Buddhist Chinese funeral may be conducted. It was written by Venerable Suvarno. Venerable Suvarno, very learned. He conducted the chanting at my grandmother's funeral many years ago. And of course, a guide to a proper Buddhist funeral by Koperasi Buddhism Malaysia. Now, for the living, the next part of the reflection on death sharing, this part is important. What I need to do for myself, and you can share this with your loved ones. Why? For long-lasting happiness, to take care of your life, the balance of your life, here and now, while you are still alive, and in a way, sow the seeds for the next life, for a good, pleasant next life. So we need to take actions, because there is this natural law. When we are born, we will die, definitely. So what are you going to do about it? So like the Sukumala Sutta, the Bodhisattva was, energy arose. I want to do something to take care of myself, to take care of my loved ones, and so on, to find the answers. So the Buddha found the answer, now he's sharing with us. So in the Punya Kriya Vatu Sutta, now the Punya Kriya Vatu, Punya means merits, Kriya means action. So it means how do you generate wholesome merits? Merits are important. Merits is karma. So the key thing is, the Buddha said, one should train in deeds of merit that yield long-lasting happiness. Dana, sila, bhavana. So you hear many Dhamma speakers talk about dana, sila, bhavana. Where did they come from? I was asking that question myself. Everybody tell me dana, sila. Where? I searched, I found this sutta. Okay, I'm sure this is not the only sutta. This is just one. So dana is giving. Sila is cultivation of morality or virtue. And bhavana, mental cultivation, mental development. So when you do these three things, deeds yielding happiness. The wise person is reborn in bliss in an untroubled, happy world. You take care of yourself for the balance of this life. And if you share this know-how as a good kalyana mitra, as a good friend with your parents, with your siblings, and so on, if they want to listen, of course, you cannot force on them. Then they can take care of themselves. Only each individual can make karma for themselves. You cannot transfer to them. Just based on this, I emphasize that when a person passes away, it's very difficult for the relatives who want to try to take care of a deceased person wherever they go. Almost impossible. But you can do a lot, because intention is karma. Intention means my intention. So you can help me by guiding me on the know-how to take care of myself, for me to make wholesome karmic energy so that I have a good life next time. whether the balance of this life or and the next life, by learning how to do dana. What is dana? Can have understanding and opportunities to do dana, to practice sila, at least pancha sila, if not more. Bhavana, some basic meditation, loving kindness meditation, also good. So these are some of the things. So when the person passes away, there's very little a relative can do for the one who passed away in terms of next plane existence. The body, of course, you can cremate, you can bury, you can do all those things. You can have the ceremony. But there's, other than that, there's very little. And why do you do dana and recite pati dana every time? It is the hope, like that, literally, keep your fingers crossed. Hopefully, my relative has not been born as a hungry ghost or peta. If they have been, I do this dana, I did this wholesome action, may they rejoice in my action. That's all you know. If they are born in hell, I cannot, this dedication merit cannot work at all, you know. So the best, most effective way of your relatives taking care of themselves is when they are alive. So the key is teaching them how to. So this starts with dana, sila, bhavana. You need to share. But you cannot ask me, oh, how do I teach my father, my mother how to take care of themselves? I do not know your father, your mother, their character. Only you as the daughter, as the son who knows. They may not want to come to Nalanda at all. They are steeped in their Chinese so-called Buddhist practices. So use skillful means. You know their character. You know their habit. They are not bad people, but they are not Buddhas also lah. But so you work along there. So your mother may like to feed the cats in the back lane. So encourage them to do dana also, but for cats then maybe you can encourage them to do higher levels of dana. So skillfully along the way. Introduce them to other people who be maybe of similar age. Why? Young fat like you, tell your father and mother, please do this. Then your father might turn around and say, who ate more rice, you or me? You cannot scolding some more. So if they have that kind of attitude, you cannot fight with them. So they will not dare to use this line against somebody who is same age as them or older, each they look up to. So introduce them to similar age, kalyana mita. They look, see, they cannot scold the person. The person is very virtuous. They also would like to be like them. So they like to copy. So make friends, introduce. So importance of friends, very great. This was mentioned by Acharya Xiangchai, the last Dhamma sharing, on this Chula Kamma Vibhanga Sutta. Why? Now, Chula means lesser, Kamma means action, or Vibhanga, analysis of Kamma. This sutta is not that short, quite long, from the Majjhima Nikaya Sutta number 135. Here, I only show you excerpts from it. Please read the whole sutta if you want to know more. This was a question posed to the Buddha by some lay people. So the question is, for short-lived and long-lived people are to be seen, sickly and healthy, ugly and beautiful, uninfluential and influential, poor and rich, low-born, high-born, stupid and discerning people are to be seen. So what is the reason? What is the cause for these people to be there? Notice so many. Today, I only share a short excerpt. Short-lived, long-lived, sickly and healthy people. Some people have long lives, but the whole life, very sickly. Want to die also cannot die. Why? Long life, but they're very sickly. So very unpleasant life. Some people very healthy, but live a short life. Halfway, heart attack and die. Don't have to spend time in the hospital and all that, but suddenly die at a young age. So all kinds of combinations. So the Buddha gave a short answer first round. Students, beings are owners of karma, heir to karma, born of karma, related through karma, have karma as their arbitrator. Karma is what creates distinctions among beings in terms of coarseness and refinement. Now, we talk about this. The Blessed One said, there is the case, student. where a woman or man is a killer of living beings, brutal, bloody-handed, given to killing and slaying, showing no mercy to living beings. Now, through having adopted and carried out such actions on the breakup of the body after death, he or she reappears in a plane of deprivation, the bad destination, the lower realms, even to be born in hell. Now, if on the breakup of the body after death, instead of reappearing in a plane of deprivation, a bad destination, the lower realms, or even in hell, he or she comes to the human state, born as a human, then he or she is short-lived wherever reborn. The characteristic of being born in the lower realm is called short life and suffering. So, but somehow he comes to the human, the body also shows the characteristic of that lower realms, short life. So this is the way leading to a short life, to be a killer of living beings, brutal, bloody-handed, given to killing and slaying, showing no mercy to living beings. Now, long life, well, a woman or a man having abandoned the killing of living beings, abstains from killing living beings, rod laid down, knife laid down, merciful, sympathetic, and so on. So through having adopted and carried out such actions on the breakup of the body after death, he or she reappears in a good destination in the heavenly world. Now, if on the breakup of the body after death, he or she comes to the human state, he is long-lived wherever reborn. The characteristic of beings having longer and longer life are devas, brahmas, very high. But born as a human, their bodies exhibit the characteristic of the devas, long life of the devas. So this is the way leading to a long life, to have abandoned the killing of living beings, to abstain from killing living beings, and so on. Okay. Now, this is something I often reflect on. Sabbe sankhara anichati. All conditioned things are impermanent. Now, the key issue is condition. Sankhara means condition. It means something come together, a group of conditions come together to produce a result. So any such thing that come out that is subject to condition, it will pass away. It will be impermanent. And the second one, sabbe sankhara dukkhati. All conditioned things are not satisfactory or are suffering. And at the bottom, sabbe dhamma anattati. All things are not self. Notice the top two are talking about sankhara, all conditioned things. So for impermanence and unself. But all things means everything in the universe are not self. Okay. Good to reflect and frequently on this aspect also. Now, illustration. In this Vedana Sutta, Vedana means feelings. The Buddha said, monks, feeling born of eye contact is impermanent, perishing, and changing. So when we see something, like now Christmas is coming, you go shopping mall, you see, oh, see, beautiful Christmas tree decoration in the shopping mall. So you see to the eye contact, you see the eye contact, then the feeling arises. Feeling of, wow, very nice. So that feeling you have is impermanent, perishing. While you are seeing it and having the nice feeling, that feeling itself is changing and perishing. So even feeling come from the ear contact, nice music or whatever. Feeling born of nose contact, something you smell. Feeling born of tongue contact, something you taste. Feeling born of body contact, something on your skin, maybe nice temperature or whatever. And feeling born of mind contact, the thoughts that arise. All such feelings are impermanent, perishing, and changing. Similarly, with this, monks, eye consciousness is impermanent, perishing, and changing. How does eye consciousness arise? When there's sunlight shining on the tree, your eye, if it still works, blind people, it doesn't work, but for the functioning eye, see the tree, the signal gets sent to the brain, you can see the image, there comes about I consciousness. Whatever consciousness that comes about through contact, that lasts for a very short moment only. It is impermanent, perishing and changing. You have to constantly see and see and see and see to keep the consciousness going, because it rises and it falls away. So similarly for the ear consciousness, nose consciousness, tongue, body, and mind. And we jump to another sutta. We are ending this morning sharing already. The Bahya Sutta, the person who got enlightened the fastest. I will say fastest. Why? The story says that he was staying in Suparaka, basically modern day Mumbai, and a deity who was his former relative came to talk to him. He said, because this person, Bahia, thought he was an arahat, he was enlightened. And the deity said, you are not an arahat. Then Bahia said, then is there any arahat in the world? Can I learn from this arahat? Then the deity said, there is this enlightened person at Savatthi. Suparaka walk all the way to Savatthi. It's very, very far. Further than Singapore to Perlis. So I don't know how many months he took to walk there. But he was so kanchiong to see the Buddha. He visited Savatthi. He went, people tell him, oh, where is the Buddha staying? Oh, Jetavana Monastery. He went there. But the Buddha was not there. He asked the monks, where is the Buddha? Then he said, oh, the Buddha is on Pintachara. So he went to the town looking. Then he saw one person. Of all the people and other monks there, he saw, this one looks very serene, very calm. He has never met the Buddha, but he see, oh, must be the Buddha. He came out, he paid respects to the Buddha and asked him, are you the enlightened one? The Buddha said, yes. Then I said, please teach me the Dhamma. The Buddha said, I'm on Pintachara, wrong time. You wait for me to finish, which is not unreasonable. Then he made a second request, and the Buddha said, no. Then he made a third request. Then the Buddha looked at him. Wow, this fellow very insistent. There and then, in the Jalan Raya of Savatthi, middle of Pintachara, the Buddha gave a Dhamma talk. But the main point is, at the end of this short Dhamma talk, he became an arahat. Standing there in the middle. He didn't sit cross-legged, listen to Dhamma talk. No, standing there talking to the Buddha, he became an arahat. And what did the Buddha say that he became an arahat? This is what. In that case, Bahia, you should train like this. In the seen will be merely the seen. In the heard will be merely the heard. In the thought will be merely the thought. In the known will be merely the known. That's how you should train. And the sutta continues. The interesting thing about him is, after that, he became arahat. He wanted to become a bhikkhu under the Buddha's dispensation. The Buddha said, cannot. You don't have requisites. You don't have robes. You don't have alms bowls. So he said, okay, I will go and get. He went short while later. One lumbu go and killed him. So he died. So the monks passed by the body. They don't know what happened. They told the Buddha, somebody passed away. Then the Buddha said, please take his body and treat it like an arahat, the worthy one, and give it the proper funeral rites. He was not a monk. He didn't get a chance, but he was already an arahat. Now back to this. In the seen will be merely the seen. Notice, if you analyze this statement, it has great impact. In what you see, that means seen is called I consciousness, the seeing consciousness, will be merely the seen. Notice the Buddha didn't tell. In the seen, you cannot say, I saw. Notice there's no I, there's no person. There is anatta. In this statement, it's built in already. In the seen will be merely the seen. What you see, that's it. How did the seen arise? Because of conditions, like I, and arising of consciousness, what they call contact, and all the paticca all crammed into one. In the seen will be merely the seen. There is no person who sees. Even what you think is a person is a wrong idea, misconcept by ourselves. We assume that assumption causes a lot of trouble, causes us to go round and round in samsara. So this person saw the answer. In the scene will be merely the scene. So in these few lines, Arahant already. This person became Arahant faster than Sariputta. Sariputta got 4 line stanza from Asaji in the street. Upatissa, who later became Sariputta, only became Sotapan, first stage of sainthood. This person straight away standing in the street became Arahant. How fast? That means he has been doing a lot of practice. He was a teacher also at that time. Then he came there, he understood what the Buddha was saying straight away. Fortunately, because of that, Arahant, but he died later, it doesn't matter already. So in the end, of course, this talk is rather long, a lot of information. But if you have forgotten, you can't remember anything Brother Vincent said or what I said earlier, the most important thing you need to take home from this hall is this, what the Buddha taught. Sabba papasa akranang kusalasa upasampada sacitta paridapanam etang buddhana sasanam. That we should avoid all evil. We should do good, purify your mind. This is the teaching of the Buddhas. This is from Dhammapada verse 183. As a minimum, you must know this. Why? It not only summarizes the Buddha's teaching, it tells you what to do. It's an action item of avoid all evil, do good, purify your mind. Now, how to do that? That one extra lah. This summarizes everything, the whole teaching of the Buddha. Now, some of you will ask this very important question, the last one. Now, why? It is because some people say, hey, I've been learning the Dhamma, I've been sharing the Dhamma, I've been meditating, go for retreats, but yet I'm not a Sotapan. Don't talk about Arahat, I'm not even a Sotapan yet. How? If I pass away, then what will become of me in the next life? Will I lose touch? And the Buddha gave this answer to Mahanama, his fellow, he's probably his cousin in the Kapilavatthu, Sakya. So he or she who has experiential confidence in the Buddha, Saddha, experiential confidence in the Buddha, Dhamma and Sangha, and is endowed with virtues that are appealing to the noble ones, and so on. So then the Buddha says, suppose a tree were leaning toward the east, slanting toward the east, inclining toward the east. When its root is cut, which way would it fall? So common sense, isn't it, in a way? So, and Mahanama answered, in whichever way it was leaning, slanting, and inclining, Lord. So in the same way, Mahanama, a disciple of the noble ones, when endowed with 4 qualities, leans toward unbinding or Nibbana, slants towards Nibbana, inclines towards Nibbana, even though he has not attained Sotapan yet. That means you have to build up confidence in the Buddha, Dhamma, and Sangha, endowed with virtues. So Sila is very important. But if you know Dana, Sila, Bhavana earlier, you are even stronger than this. This is bare minimum. You're already slanting. So if you're not attaining enlightenment in this life, you worry that next time, I'll be lost in samsara again. But this one builds up your foundation. You're leaning, you're practicing already. So if you don't make it now, next time, that is called continue. Part 2, episode 2 of your practice. So that's the end of this morning sharing. Saddhammo cirang titatu. May the good doctrine long endure. Sabbe satta sukhi hontu. May all beings be happy.